Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Energy Markets podcast. It is June 28th, the last trading day of the quarter. We've got Brent crude oil again looking rather strong, rising through the month after the sell-off in early June on the back of the OPEC Plus meeting, but now at a very buoyant 86, 87, with geopolitical risk, it would appear, coming back into the forefront, and not because we're looking like it was a Trump presidency after the disastrous debate last night by what would appear a faltering President Biden. Questions about whether he should continue as the candidate. I left the debate thinking whether he should even continue as president. The man is the leader of the world and sitting on all the nuclear powers, etc. He looked very weak last night, which of course is very concerning if you have issues with Donald Trump. But that's the state of play this morning as we kick off the trading day. Asia, again, geopolitical risk back into the mix. And let's kick off this morning with Lori Hatayan, MENA Director, Natural Resource Governance Institute. Lori, I know you're not in Lebanon at the moment, now based out of Brussels, but nonetheless, one of the big geopolitical risk stories that seem to be reactivating the oil markets is the status between Lebanon and Israel, between Hezbollah in particular, the militia force in Israel, in Lebanon. Your thoughts on the outlook for that crisis?
So good morning to everyone. Basically, yes, all attentions now are on Lebanon, Israel, definitely with all these calls from embassies, from European embassies and others calling their people to leave the country while they can. And this is a sign that there might be escalation to the point of targeting more besides or beyond the borders, and mainly people are afraid that maybe the airport will be targeted. And then the Telegraph news that came out of it, even though people had said that it is not very reliable, but there were like information, or at least some information, or saying that there are like the Iranians are using and Hezbollah are using the Lebanese airport not only to transfer arms, but even to put the arms there or somewhere like in storage, etc., to keep them in storages in the airport, which reminded people of the port attack, of the port incident, etc. So because the airport is in a very residential central area, so that could be something. So there is tension definitely on that, and this is what, like, when you hear Iran saying that if there is escalation beyond what's happening now, Iran would have to support Israel, and if Iran comes in, that means that there will be some American engagement as well. So therefore, like, there is this tension about like expanding the war, and therefore like having an impact on the supplies that are coming from Iran, and maybe it will be escalations more on what the Houthis are doing, so attacking some of the ships that are carrying oil or gas. So again, like a disruption in supply. At the same time, if there is expansion on the war, so maybe Hezbollah would want to target some of the platforms that exist in Israel, and therefore that will be automatically creating not only impact on Israel, but as well in Egypt that is already suffering from lack of gas, that is having cuts in electricity, that is having some tensions there, and that could be a disruption in Egypt that no one wants at this stage, like to disrupt the fragile balance in Egypt. So all of that is looming on what's happening in the region, and then on the oil and gas market to some extent.
Daniel Rahmat, Senior Energy Security Consultant based in Tehran. Daniel, your thoughts from the sort of geopolitical perspective of Iran, looking out at the region, looking at the growing tensions in Lebanon, Israel, Hezbollah, Israel, where Iran might stand. Iran has very skillfully over the last 8 months of Israel's onslaught of Gaza, mainly stayed out, has de-escalated. Of course, there was the very big face-off in the second quarter that was diffused quite quickly. Where do you think Iran's perspective and ability to diffuse this latest escalation in this regional instability between Israel and Lebanon?
Hello, everybody. Sean, let me please start with the ongoing presidential elections in Tehran now. And as you know, that today Iran is holding the presidential elections, and the president who will be elected, there are only 3 serious candidates. Mr. Jalili, the very conservative, then actually ex-head of the National Security Council, Mr. Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Parliament, and Mr. Pezeshkian, the actual candidate from the reformist side. This really matters who is the president in Iran, both regarding Iran's reactions to regional conflicts and also, more importantly, about actually designing and structuring Iran's geopolitical policies in the region. I think if the reformist candidate has a very high chance to be elected today. If he is elected, we will witness a significant cool down in the tensions in the region, because they don't want war in the region. Also, they want some kind of deal with the West. Okay, the elections apart, at the current moment, there is very high risk of an all-out war in Lebanon. As Laurie said, Israel is not going to limit the war to the borders, because Hezbollah has infrastructures deep in the country. Also, they have the structures and infrastructure deep in Syria. So I think if there is a war with Hezbollah, Israel is going to target many targets, many places in Syria as well. And those places are joint bases between Iran, IRGC, and Hezbollah. Because if they feel they're at a sort of existential threat, they're not going to limit their fight to their own soil. I mean Hezbollah. So they're going to use their bases and everything they have in Syria as well. So like it or not, IRGC will be involved in that war. And in a bigger scale, Iran is going to support IRGC and Hezbollah as well. And the Syrian regime has to support this war, because they're not in a level they have to support Iran, and they have to actually facilitate the bases, the soil, whatever they have, the airspace to Iran. So that would probably be a much bigger actually conflict comparing with the Gaza ones. But the bigger it is, the risk of elimination of the group, in this case Hezbollah, is less. So Israel has less chance to eliminate Hezbollah comparing with Hamas in Gaza. So the whole country.
It's certainly one where, I mean, even in Gaza, it would appear Israel are trying to steer away from that original claim of being, the objective of the invasion of Gaza being the elimination of Hamas, as sort of a innocuous ambition, similarly with Hezbollah. But let's go to Arn Lohman Rasmussen, Chief Analyst and Head of Research at Global Risk Management. Arn, underpinning this current oil price rise, we seem to be breaking out of this tight low 80s band that we've been in for most of the year, really. Average oil price the first half of the year is $84. Is this the return of the risk premium? We're seeing also Ukrainian attacks on Russian oil installations. Your thoughts on the return of the political risk premium to send these prices to $90?
That's a very good question, and good morning to all of you. Is there risk premium crawling into the oil price? Maybe a bit in the Brent, but if you look at something like the gas oil crack, the diesel crack, there isn't actually much to be seen there. That's a very different situation from early in the year. We have plenty of diesel gas oil inventories, for example, in Europe. So that's one point. On the oil price itself, is there risk premium crawling into that? I think it's important to look at, for example, the so-called DFL, or that's the difference between the dated Brent, the price here now, and the first position in the futures market, or the so-called prompt spread, the first versus the second contract. They are actually showing a relatively bullish structure. That indicates it's not really a risk premium that is crawling into the price. I think it's much less than it was half a year ago. But it also indicates that you can actually start to price something in. And when I hear Laura and Daniel, I can of course be a bit concerned. We also saw, or at least read about the Trump-Biden tonight. There could be a standoff with Iran on this. I hope Daniel is correct that Iran will have a more moderate president, so we can cool down things a bit. But yes, it's crawling into the price, the risk premium, the geopolitical risk premium, but it's certainly much smaller than it was half a year ago, 4 months ago, in my view.
Laurie, looking at this idea of geopolitical risk, and of course there are the obvious hotspots of the Israel's war with all its neighbors. It seems to want to fight everybody at the moment. And the Ukrainian and Russian, typically heats up in the summer, and the obvious theaters of war that we've been living with now for a few years. But on top of that, we've got this disastrous, what appears in the day after look at the two presidential candidates in the United States, for whatever side of the fence you're on, two 80-year-olds running for election there, not very optimistic outlook. And now in Europe, it seems a collapse of the center with the leaders of France and Germany yesterday sort of pushed back by the rest of the European leadership, not getting their way, looking very weak as well. And now von der Leyen returns. Could you give us a bit of an update on the state of political outlook in Europe? Is it an area of concern, or is it just noise?
Look, what's happening in Europe now, definitely they are more concerned on filling the positions that they have after the elections. And it looks like there was a deal that was yesterday made with the EPP being like the big center party, the European People's Party, who von der Leyen belongs to, and the Renew group that is like the liberals, the Macronists, if you want, at the European level, and the SD, which is like the socialist groups. So these three had come together, they had discussions, and then they nominated their candidates to the main three positions, which are like European Council choosing the Portuguese president, like Antonio Costa, and then so he's a socialist, so that is like what Germany had put there as Schulz candidate. And then from Renew you had the Prime Minister of Estonia for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, if you want, like to succeed to Borrell, and then so Kaja Kallas, and then for the EU Commission, EPP securing another, at least putting the candidacy of von der Leyen. So these are the three main positions that yesterday were put in the meetings. Giorgia Meloni was the one that wasn't very happy with these meetings, considering that bypassing her is not correct because the Europeans had spoken, and there is a kind of increase in the right, even if it's right, left, extreme right, etc. So they cannot bypass her. She abstained on von der Leyen, opposed Kallas and Costa, and I think like she's in a position like where she wants to get key issues, and abstaining on Meloni on von der Leyen is because she wants to get more on what she cares about and her agenda, which is migration. So, but I guess like with her or without her?
I don't want to pull you out of the weeds, the granular detail
Yes.
of European politics in its pieces, but in the bigger picture, it looks like Europe has no leadership at the moment. Both Macron, the French and German leaders, who are the natural political heavyweights in Europe because of size of population and economy, look very weak after their recent elections. Where is that potentially impacting, let's say, Ukraine, or is there a consequence of this macro European political weakness, or is that just the normal state of European affairs? It's always weak no matter who sits in the seat.
So look, it's yes, there is a weakness on Germany and France, and then let's wait for the elections in France. Like maybe there will like be a more of a punch in the face of Macron if the Rassemblement National makes it as they made it in Europe. So definitely there is like, even when they're weak, like Macron and Schulz were able like to propose what they're proposing on the EU level. The EU is like currently they again like they need to find their way in being again if you want like dealing with their problems and being competitive again and being strong on their industries and what they propose, and then dealing with the changes that will come, especially on the American election side. So basically, I think like they were never like geopolitically, they were not like a main player. They tried,
Right.
and von der Leyen and the group tried, and they said we want to make EU more geopolitically savvy. Maybe in the second term of von der Leyen, they will have to play that role because of this vacuum in leadership that we are seeing from the Western side.
I think I mean, you mentioned Meloni there. I think the European Parliament, which still has to ratify von der Leyen's candidacy I think they're going to put a surprise in here, particularly given the far right, and may push back against this idea of von der Leyen inevitability. Daniel Rahmat,
number one, but I think like numbers, maybe they cannot. But again, there were like some writings saying because this is a secretive vote, so some might not vote for her. That's why they would need Meloni's votes so that they secure von der Leyen.
I don't know, you might have a weird coalition on the left. There's a lot of disappointment in von der Leyen's re-election when you think of things like Gaza and genocide and such things. But nonetheless, Europe in chaos, not good. I think the oil markets feel this Western weakness, and its fragility gives an upward push to the price, not just the wars. Daniel, I wanted to take issue a little bit with your earlier comment that the result of the Iranian presidential election could put Iran down a different path if it's a reformist versus hard line. The sort of international consensus is, and you could obviously correct us, is that the outcome of the presidential election doesn't matter, and hence I didn't bring it up in my opening comment because the outcome is still, and the political heavyweight is still with the supreme ruler, and that the presidential election is more sort of peripheral decoration. Your thoughts on that general sort of maybe biased and ignorant view from the world, but nonetheless, that would be the perspective. Are you telling us something different, that it is the difference is notable or could be notable?
I agree with you that the dominant power is still in the hands of the supreme leader here, and it will remain if the constitution is not changed, or at least there is no big turning point in the coming maybe months. As probably it is said that the life of the supreme leader is at risk because he is getting old and he has probably several disease. So the next president here, the one who is going to be elected today, will be most probably the one who will run the country while the supreme leader passes away. So this is a very important turning point in this country's contemporary history, that we are in very different kinds of conflicts. Iran has developed a network of proxies, many of them considered terrorist groups in the region, supporting wars and supporting other militias here or there, and trying to become a regional superpower. And when the leader dies, if there is no balance in the balance of power in the country, there would be big headache for the system to actually establish the next supreme leader or somebody. I'm not going to go very much deep in that, but anyway, you know, that's we have other macro crises around us. We have the Ukraine war and the war in the Europe, which really matters for Russia and directly affects their policies in the Middle East region, and they have getting closer and closer to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and they just want to develop their influence in the region. And Iran is very concerned about that kind of influence. Iran wants Russia to be its ally, not to be the dominant power in Tehran. So there is a sort of infight here about how we should deal with when I say we, I mean the country should deal with the Russians as well as Chinese. Chinese have a very big strategic development plan here to be replaced by Americans in the region in terms of, you know, they are the main oil buyer here, and they're going to be the main investor. So they should be definitely the main security partner of the GCC here. So Iran has such kind of concerns.
And these are big changes, big moments of change in the big wheel of time.
Right.
Will any of it happen fast enough to stop Israel and Hezbollah going to war? That's ultimately the question, and the oil markets doesn't think so. Arne, looking at the fundamentals.
Sorry, Sean. Sorry, may I add one more point?
Please.
Look, if Iran, you know, we are getting very close to the moment that the world power should decide whether they're going to remain in JCPOA or get out of that through the trigger actually capacity in that, which is going to be October. And Britain has already said that if Iran does not stop its nuclear program and does not come back to its obligations in JCPOA, they're going to use the trigger and they're going to actually demolish whatever they have already built in JCPOA. Let me please tell you that a conservative president cannot deal with the world on JCPOA again. You know, so there should be somebody before Biden goes out of office who actually revives the JCPOA. This is a very narrow window of chance for Iran.
I don't think you're going to get that from, I mean, as you know, a Zionist Keir Starmer coming into London is you know, we've seen what the agenda is already. This is not a Trump and Keir Starmer, they might be from political opposites of the spectrum, but on certain issues they are sadly very aligned, which is not very, you know, does not bode well for our neighborhood. As I'll just sort of put it into that space. Arne, I wanted just to come back to you to sort of underpin us here with the fundamentals. Clearly, we saw moments in the second quarter, again, the Iran-Israel face-off, missiles moving in both directions, prices went above $90. Now, Arne, we've got them moving again with the sort of drums of wider conflict. But where are the fundamentals in this market, Arne, as we go into the peak of the summer driving season? Everybody's flying on airplanes everywhere. Where's the fundamentals supporting this market? Is this a strong market regardless of the geopolitical risk?
I think we could say we have spent almost all the last 3 months in Q2 talking about the strong Q3. We are now there on Monday. So what's the status quo here? I think the verdict is actually still out there. We don't see a big draw, for example, in the US crude oil inventories. Gasoline demand is not that impressive. Airline demand, jet fuel demand is very, very strong. Suddenly a strong pocket. So what should we expect in Q3? I actually think we will see the confirmation that things are looking better, and that we continue to see an upward pressure in Q3, and I'm pretty sure we will see a test of the 90. So, but the verdict is still out there how strong Q3 will be. But I think it will be there. But we should also remember, as we go into the summer, as we go into Q3, we will start discussing Q4 and not least Q1, and there's no seasonal support to the oil price. On the contrary, Q1 is the weak quarter of the year. We are always 1 quarter or half a year ahead, so to speak. But status quo is the verdict is still out there. It looks strong on the fundamentals. The market structure tells me it's relatively strong. I think it'll be confirmed. I think there's still some upside there, but the trees don't grow into the sky. And we will start discussing over the next couple of months how much oil will OPEC put on the market. And then the final thing I think is quite important is that we almost forgot about US oil production. It's flat for 9 months now. I think that's going to be a big theme to follow over the next couple of months. What will happen there? Last year, there was sort of the same discussion. It's not going to come. And then suddenly it was like a ketchup out of the bottle. Production rose significantly. We'll actually have the official numbers for April this afternoon. I'll keep a close eye on those. But the US production is quite important because that is really how difficult will this be for OPEC next year. That all comes down to how much oil will the US be able to put on the market.
Well, it is an interesting point, and when you intersect it with the announcement that the U.S. Senate is investigating the biggest U.S. oil companies for colluding with OPEC Plus on managing this oil price. I mean, the silence of the drilling rigs in the U.S. does look a little bit, questionable.
That was actually a quite interesting survey up on the Dallas Fed a few days ago, where they ask, and this is a very good survey to follow, where they ask people in the Houston, Texas area, Dallas area, in the oil industry, what is your view on this M&A activity, the concentration that's been going on in the shale oil industry? Is that positive or negative for oil output, for oil production growth? And I would actually think that most people would say that, okay, we have concentration, we have stronger financial companies and so on. That would indicate we could have higher production. But they are actually saying, no, we expect this to be negative, to be pointed to flat growth, that we have this concentration in the industry, in the shale oil industry. So take a look at that survey, quite interesting.
Which is not good, of course, for Houston because of the huge supply chain in that area, who rely heavily on contracts from the shale oil production, whether it be drillers or trucking or water or sand, all of the suppliers of all those things not getting.
But I think if this actually looks like a Trump win now, right? And remember what his mantra is drill, baby, drill. So I think there'll be a lot of focus on how to kickstart oil production.
He will even struggle to convince the powers that be in Texas that it's in their interest to drill and lower the oil price. Let's go to the survey question. We have a very tight window here on the turnaround. Trump's likely return as president jumped above 60% after the debate last night. Is that bullish or bearish for prices? The increasing likelihood of a Trump presidency, which, in January 6, 2021 seemed, a very far away concept, now looks increasingly likely. Is that bullish or bearish for prices? Your thoughts on that. Laurie, just quickly wrap around here. Can Lebanon once again extract itself from the jaws of a conflict with Israel, or does this look like the 6-7 months of inevitability finally descending? As the closest to Lebanon, as the most knowledgeable in that space, can you share with us your thoughts? Can they extract out from it? Is there a button that can be pressed here to stop this?
Look, I think, or maybe this is wishful thinking. I think this escalation and in words and in deeds, etc., all of that is like to prevent that wider war. And I think like we're getting to the peak of that with all these escalations. And most importantly, at the same time of these kind of escalations in rhetoric and in showing like what they can do and the damages that they can do on both sides, is because at the same time of that, you have like talks about like diplomacy is important, and we'll think about diplomatic ways to get out of this. So both parties in this case, like in Hezbollah's case and Israeli case, they don't want that. They just want, they have their own interests, and then they want to find a way to get out of it, but they want to come out of this as winners on both sides. And it cannot be a win-lose situation. And this is where everyone is thinking about how it can be a win-win situation for both with preventing a large-scale war. So it is a very complex situation for the diplomats. they're trying, like everyone is trying hard to do that, to find a solution. Amos Hochstein is under pressure because he was successful in the deal on the maritime border, but this one is really very complex for him. So he wants to do a double win with this, like ending this war between Lebanon and Israel and Hezbollah. So let's see. Now today, I think there is no war. Even like all embassies are saying evacuate. I don't see a war that will be a large-scale war. But maybe this is me wishful thinking, because next week I'm going to Beirut. So we'll see. We'll see in due time. It is, but I do believe that there is no.
I'm trying to convince my parents-in-law to get out of there earlier than they planned, but nonetheless, 50-50 bearish and bullish in this room on Trump. It's sort of the ever confusing outlook with where he is bringing his return and what it means for the markets. The trouble in Lebanon does, and in Israel, obviously, a lot. This is a window, this vacuum now of American presence, given the election. Biden's ability to, I mean, it's already been relatively weak, pushing on Netanyahu in recent months. In the next few months, it'll be even weaker. And this is a window where, I mean, if Israel can do what it wants at any time, but this is certainly a window where it could do what it wants with limited consequences, at least from its American allies. That is a little bit concerning. We're going to have to wrap it up there. The quarter is over, at least it is for us. Obviously, we'll be back on Monday, but nonetheless, the quarter is over. I think we have oil prices on the move now. Brent crude oil trading well above $86, knocking on 87. The return of the geopolitical risk premium, and it will continue to climb as long as this bubbling conflict, Israel-Lebanon, is with us and doesn't get diffused. Lori Atayan, as always, really great to have you. Probably our last time before the summer break in 2 weeks. Really great, as always. Your insights are very appreciated. Daniel Rahmat as well from Tehran. Best of luck with the election today. Don't forget to vote. Arn Lohman Rasmussen, thank you so much for your insights and contributions. Have a great summer, and we will see you all in September. But the podcast continues for another 2 weeks, but probably we won't have you guys back on in that short period. Thanks, guys. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
You too. Goodbye. Goodbye, Aaron.